WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. I want to thank you for being with us again Tuesday. Each and every Tuesday, we come to you at 2:30 on WCLN, Star Communications, and the Sampson Weekly newspaper. Not necessarily in that order, but we simulcast with Star Communications and WCLN. I want to thank you for your comments from last week's shows, and always I want to thank you for sending your emails and your commentary to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. weshouldknow@edu@gmail.com. Also, the post office box is Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina 28328. I am J.W. Simmons, and I am so pleased to have a good friend of everybody I know and a good friend of mine, and Becky Spell Vann. I have to make sure I get that in the right order. Becky, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's the time of the year when we think about a lot of stuff. You have done so much over the past year in 2019, everything from Rise Up to Tim's Gift, things that folks just cannot even imagine that you're engaged in, but you've become kind of the go-to person for people that are in need, or for people that need prayer, or for activities that can enrich people's lives. Talk to us about what's going on and what's happening in your life. One of the things that I'll kind of throw this up to start with is that the question you asked in an article you just did in the local newspaper, it says, how many holiday seasons do you have left? And it begs the question, the sense of timeability in our life and what we're focusing on.
Right. Well, JW, I think that as a people living in a small town, we have so many gifts that we take for granted. And we become so involved in things that we forget to make memories. And we forget to share kindness because we're in such a hurry. And that has been a theme that has been ongoing at Tim's Gift and the Learning Station now. At the Learning Station for 31 years and at Tim's Gift for 11 years. But in the past few years, we've had an emphasis on kindness. And this past year, it really escalated when Riley Pope, who is a local girl, she's a junior at Harrell's, her father's a farmer here, Josen Pope. And they've done an amazing job raising Riley to share kindness. And she came to me and wanted to volunteer this summer. And she came in with a 10-part syllabus on kindness. And it really started wheels rolling in the teachers' minds and the children. So we've really put a lot of emphasis on it since then. And we've tried to do what we do at Tim's Gift with a kinder spirit. We have tried to do with the children. Sometimes when we get frustrated, we might do an act of kindness, but if we do it in the wrong spirit, the Bible says that He doesn't recognize it. So through that and through Edie Carr, Wendy and Bob Carr's daughter, she volunteered this summer at the Learning Station. She is a freshman, and she did a campaign called Be Nice. She started it at Clinton High School 3 years ago. She came and worked with the children 3 days a week and talked about kindness and being nice instead of bullying. So today we just wanted to challenge everyone who's listening, who reads about this, to pass it on and share kindness, and it's the perfect season to talk about it.
It's interesting that you use that phrase, because we seem to be getting more and more into this societal conflict of polarization, and some of it, we see on Facebook and social media and various other platforms. We see it in the political arena. We see it in our lives, and it's almost like our expectations are not being fulfilled, and the word kindness is quite often not in that conversation.
That's right. In fact, I was listening to the news this morning and someone said, why are our children acting and reacting the way they do? They don't often show kindness. What is our leadership doing? And we know it's not all of it, but it becomes contagious. And if we all stop and show more kindness and take time with people instead of just brushing people off or giving a hateful, harsh word, probably everybody watching this today, including you and I probably, have had a moment in this past week that we've had traffic rage. Maybe it was at a stoplight or somebody passed us, and then we were angry. And if we handle things in a different way, and if we engage with people who are showing kindness, then it will make us want to do it. In fact, our children at the learning session, today was a half day, and they just got off the school bus before I came over here, and they were so excited that we stopped and sat down outside the learning session to look at the window. And we have 3 messages in that window. Go horses, because our dark horses are, vying for the state championship. And then it had share love and happy gobble. And as we talked about what those things meant, the children shared ways that they've shared kindness today. And then Miss Eleanor Bradshaw drives up. She comes up to the children and she's talking with them, and she's had a little health problem with her foot, and she was limping. So the children asked, and then they wanted to pray with her. So they actually just reached out and touched her ankle, and 4 of the children said prayers with her, not prayers for her, but they actually touched her ankle. And she was brought to tears, and it was a powerful moment. And I was reminded that we should never say all our children are not thoughtful or kind. Neither should we say it about adults, nor our leaders. But we have a majority. If you look at our news, most of it's bad. I think on the nightly news, with an hour episode, the last minute gets a good deed shown. 1 minute out of 60 minutes about good news. So that's why we're here today, is we want to challenge the people that live in our area, in our city and county, because we've got a great place to live. We want to challenge people between now and Christmas to do holiday giving in a different way, to do something tangible that will make a difference in somebody's life. Like, in fact, while we were sitting outside the learning station, 2 ladies walked by pushing a cart, and they had their food in it. They come by every day pushing a cart. And Miss Eleanor was able to share with those children that yesterday, when she left the grocery store, she met a lady who was walking carrying her groceries. She stopped and asked the lady, could she help her? She said, I'll be glad to take you home. She actually lived down 5 Bridge Road. But Eleanor said she was so blessed by that, and the children were touched, because here was a lady who just stopped by to say hello. She was prayed for, and then in return she shared a good deed she just did yesterday. So it is contagious, JW. I believe that.
Is what we're talking about to some extent the idea of paying it forward?
I believe it is. You remember that movie?
Yep.
That sparked a lot of kind deeds across our nation. I think it is paying it forward, but I think we become complacent and we see so much negativity that it just becomes a part of us. And we don't even realize that our hearts have become hardened to what God said was the most important. He said to love Him first and to love our neighbors. And do we really love our neighbors? Or is it who we choose?
And is it by choice and at time that's convenient?
That's right. Because it's not always easy, and it does take time. But when we give of our time, then it blesses us back tenfold. I truly believe that. And that's one thing our children are doing. They have made things all week to take home to their parents. And what we've encouraged them to do, in fact, these are thankful thoughts. And imagine your child bringing something like this home, and every one of these children have included things that their family does together, or things that they're thankful for. And some of them had a hard time coming up with things that their family does, like eat a meal together, JW. Very few of them ate meals together. They said that they go through the drive-through. It's quick and it's convenient, because many families are overextended now. But what we would like to encourage people to do who are watching this today is to get inspired. Be that little spark that gets the fire going, and let our community truly see people doing kind deeds on purpose, purposefully, and passionately.
When I looked, and I just glanced at a few of the phrases there, many of those are like 2-letter words, but you saw words like my food, my home, my dad, my mom, those kinds of things. It becomes paramount to understand that it doesn't have to be a lengthy exposition of words. It can be just something very simple. Just a comment or acknowledgement sometimes helps.
It does. And I think we don't realize the importance of that, because a lot of our children have become so consumed with electronics. And it does polarize them. They are playing with a lot of their friends from all over the world. But it keeps them secluded, sometimes in their bedroom or in places where they are not making actual contact with people. And it's not just children, it's adults. We have things with our electronics, our computers. It's a change in our lifestyles. So this is purposefully taking a challenge that this Christmas season, that we would do things that impress upon people that we really care. We can give a gift. We can spend the money and buy a gift. And that's important. We all love to get a gift. But what if we give a gift of time? If we give a gift of helping someone and when they were not expecting it? And we think it has to be for someone who has nothing or is in need or might be homeless. Any of us enjoy the recognition or a good hug or a kind word. So kindness does count.
I recall a quote some years ago I read that basically, maybe I'll paraphrase it and not slaughter it too bad, but it basically, the content was, if you really want to know someone's heart, look into their eyes. And as you were talking about utilizing so much social media now, we really don't get to look in people's eyes that much. No, we don't. And a lot of our children are growing up that this is a way of life. And when we talk about things that we might have done as youngsters, that are memories in our mind, you know, spending time with family members is very important. And while many families try to do that today, children are not only involved with electronics, they're overextended, JW. They have so many activities, as do we adults. Our plates are always full. We're going to take a break, and I want to come back and talk a bit more about those memories and maybe spur some memories out there to those folks that are listening to us. We both go back in similar areas and so forth here, and I think it's important that as we look at it from the perspective that you're speaking from, that it would be good to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Becky Spell Vann. We're talking about the holidays. We're talking about some things that maybe you need to think about, refresh a moment with.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. We're coming up on our second segment here on the show called We Should Know. My name is J.W. Simmons, and it's my pleasure to be with you. I want to remind you of some events coming up right here, right around the corner, and it's December 14th, the Christmas Parade in the city of Clinton. There's also an event going on in downtown Clinton on the 5th at 5:30. This is kind of the city Christmas in the City event that's been done many years. Mary Rose and a number of other people are involved in that. On the Christmas Parade Day, I understand there's going to be a little happening there called Sweet Treats or Sweet Troll, in which you can call Mary Rose, get a ticket, and go to different shops downtown where they have sweet treats and look at some things going on. And her number is 299-4904. 299-4904, and anybody that knows Mary Rose knows that she's a go-to person to know what's going on in downtown Clinton. Today we're talking with Becky Spell Vann. We're talking about these kinds of things, feelings and emotions, and how we connect with the holidays in a time when everybody's in a hurry. As we sit here today, I'm sure people are listening to us, and it might be on the radio. They could be watching us on Channel 16, hopefully both. But as they're looking at that, they're probably thinking, I've got to go. I've got to go get this. I got to get that. When I think about you, and many people do, they think of Tim's Gift. They think of the Learning Station. What I want to do is try and give you an opportunity to help us reflect about that, because you've been doing just those events for, I'm not going to say years, probably decades.
Yes.
So tell us that's been a kind of a cornerstone here in the area for years.
Well, JW, children are such an important part of my life. I've always wanted to be a school teacher. I retired from that in 2004.
I think you are.
Well, I love it. But when Tim bought the property where Tim's Gift is now, it became Allstate Insurance, and the building was for sale beside it. And we decided to buy that. We had no idea what it would be. We were going to put it in a teacher's store, but after praying over it, it became a daycare. And we've been there now 31 years, and it's been an amazing, amazing blessing in my life. The children have blessed me a lot more than I feel like we have blessed them. I love what I do, and I think that's important. And a lot of times we're frustrated, we're tired at the end of the day, all of us are, but when we love what we do, that contagious spirit goes out, and that's what's happened there. And then Tim and I raised the boys there between the two buildings, working together, and then when Tim passed, and our home was full of medical equipment, it was like I didn't know what direction. I think many people are in those positions, even this holiday season. There's so many people whose hearts are broken, and chairs will be empty tomorrow at Thanksgiving meals. And there are kind deeds we can do for those people just to help them to get through that. And during that season with me, I was going to sell or rent the building where Tim's Gift is. But through much prayer and God guiding, it was like, no, do not get rid of that medical equipment. One day will come when we as a people will use leftovers. We will not throw away things and just go out and buy new things. So that is the concept that started Tim's Gift, was that equipment that was in our home. And we took that building, and then I was given a love donation of $50 from the Prayer Connection here in Clinton when I had cancer 4 months after Tim passed. They said, this is for your ministry. I didn't know what ministry. A lot of people don't know that this is how it started, but that's how it did. There was a seed gift given, a kind deed by a group of people who prayed over me. And Miss Farrell Carter was instrumental in that. And I took that money and put it in the bank, and I said, I don't know what this is, but it's a love ministry. And that's grown into Tim's Gift. And what we do is we give. But people give to us. It is a cycle. It is built on kindness. People now, when a loved one passes away and they don't know what to do with things, they bring it, donate it. We catalog it, we give it out. It is amazing the amount of supplies that are donated to us that we're able to give out to others. And it just keeps growing, because not only are we blessing other people, they are blessing us back. So that is the concept of it. And we read it in the Bible, and we hear people talk about it, and we think, well, it really doesn't work that way. But it does, because we're able to help a lot of people locally because of the kindness of people in our community. Churches. We just had our community service last week, and the city churches that went together for the service over at Grove Park, we were very humbled that the offering they donated to Tim's Gift. So I'm just very thankful for how God is growing it. And I'm careful not to say that it's us, because it's the best work I've ever done. There's no salary involved, because it wouldn't be right if there was, JW. There's some things we do in life, we do it because God puts it on our heart, and He gives the blessing back. So we're there, and we are just taking every day as a gift, and we're seeing how people come. And when they come and bring things, we pray with them. That's one concept we started in 2008 when Tim's Gift started. We said we may not be able to provide every need. And Chris Embler taught me this when he worked with us 2 years. He said, we are not the answer. We're only a Band-Aid on some of the big problems that people have and the needs. But we can offer what we do, and we can pray with people. So that's been one of our staples that we do with anybody that comes in that door, from the UPS men to the postman to people that come for help. Anybody that comes in, we pray with them. And it's had an amazing effect on the ministry.
You've seen a lot of things happening over the past decade, and you talk about a bit in this article the idea of memories. When you look back, you've mentioned this on this show before, those, quote, cherished memories you have, those things that involved patrons and folks that have given, folks that were in need. Talk to us a bit about what you're seeing now as we oftentimes define ourselves in either a baby boomer generation or the Gen X generation, or various aspects of age is kind of quantifying. Is there a difference in the millennials thinking versus the baby boomers versus the Gen X versus all of these other generations? There's
definitely a difference, JW. And you see that. And when people come in the door at Tim's Gift, or when we deal with parents at the learning station, I I have learned that it's how we handle things, it's how we deal with it, our reaction, you know, the way we react to anything that we go through, whether we're dealing with a baby boomer or a senior citizen or a youngster, has to do with our actions, a lot of it. It can make in the end result. We have people that come in, we've never had in 10 and a half years at Tim's Gift, we've only had one person that refused to pray with us. And when we did, I said, well, that's fine, but we're going to be praying for you. I find that our younger people are very receptive. And to begin with, it's like they look at you like, you want to pray with me? But I can tell you, even this week, the people that have been in, we have seen people that when you stand there and you hold hands and you pray about a situation, there are tears, there are hugs, it's like a disbelief almost, like, I wasn't expecting this when I came in. And I think that we need a boldness in our faith. You don't have to be a holy roller or go out and say, you know, all about church, 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 church. It is important that we are Christians and our witness shines. And sometimes that's by just being quiet and listening to somebody, and when you hear their need. We had someone come in this week that works with a carnival. And they were hurt by one of the pieces of equipment, and they were in a very difficult place. They live close by, the family does, and they came to us, and it was the most unique situation, JW. And I was like, well, really, we really don't know how to handle this. And it was a younger couple, and at first there was almost a bit of arrogance. And as we just talked with them, we empathized with them. And we reached out and just held their hand, and we prayed together. And what happened next was, it was amazing. So whether you're a baby boomer, or a young child, or an older person, I think if we act and react with love, like Jesus taught, in humility and boldness, and sometimes we have to speak up. It's not that we go around and we're a pushover, but when we react in love and boldness and truth, we have to face it with the truth and not sweep it under the rug or falsify what's happening. I think we would see a real change in the atmosphere in our nation.
That is, I think, probably one of the best summations I've heard in trying to get folks to understand that we're all in this thing together, that there's not as much separation as we really think there is. I think there's obviously differences of opinion, but the root of it is when there's tragedy, and you face tragedy in your life, it tends to bring people to a common ground, and it's almost immediate. And I'm not saying that someone has to pass away, but you know, it could be a severe illness. It could even obviously be a traffic situation, somebody's injured bad or something. But you see people coming together, and as you just pointed out, it comes together with heavy emotion.
That's right. It does. And we see that every day. In fact, this week we had a young man who was coming through town. And we wouldn't go into details because we don't want to share. We don't have to share the details, but we know we've all had tragedies and we've all been in hard places, and he'd been off his medicine for a month. And when he walked in, we couldn't understand him. And the stench was so great, JW. I don't know when the last time this young man had a bath. And I sat in my office as Diane tried to talk with him and understand even his language. And what we realized is he needed medicine. And he said, it's at CVS, but if I don't get my medicine, and the man spoke of all the tragedies he's gone through and where he is in life right now. So I called CVS while she was working with them to find out if he was legitimate, because that's the first thing we have to do sometimes. Sure enough, he had medicine waiting. Long story short, Diane prayed with him. I went to CVS, paid for his medicine. He picked it up. And 2 hours later, he had walked back across town. He walked from the other side of town. One of our churches sent him to us. And he got his medicine, but he came back to say thank you. So we prayed again. So this man, whom I will never see again, he was just coming through our town. But he was able to get his medicine, JW, because people support us. We can help others.
We're going to take another break. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for being with us. We're talking about issues faced all through the year, but more particularly during the holiday season, the kinds of challenges that folks are facing out there. And Becky Spell Vann is helping out with that. We'll be back in a moment.
You come out to replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody trying to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air, 2:30 every Tuesday. Information, education show. Hopefully, commentary from people that's out there on the front lines doing things that might affect your life, might be meaningful for you. And we hope that today's show is an example of that. We're talking with Becky Spell Vann. I always get that mixed up. Longing into the story, Becky, you have become a minister of a special kind in the area. And when Tim passed away, it's like it charged you forward in some aspect of which you just explained a while ago. That part of your life didn't just pass away. That was a big memory moment for you. Tell us kind of how when you were married and you and Tim had such and of course I remember him very well, yes. A very vital, aggressive, moving, energy-driven, and then all of a sudden this hits you. And folks listening to us, I know, has probably faced death either in their own situation or a family situation, but instead of it kind of derailing your life, you kind of got supercharged. How did that happen? Because
I made God a promise when Tim was sick, JW. I really did. In the middle of the night one night, and when things looked so dismal, and you don't know who to reach out to, because family and friends are, sometimes we don't know what to say to someone. But the important thing is we say something, even if it's a hug or a word of encouragement. And we were at one of our lowest points, and I was like, God, please heal. Give my husband your best healing. And I promise you, if you will, I will share your word and your love. And what I realized is he did get God's best healing, which was heaven. And I kept my promise because it was a covenant, and that was very important to me. And I just promised to write stories and share about life and to share how we can all be a part and we can do the things that we think are impossible through him. And it's just mushroomed. It was in God's plans. It's not, I don't take credit for it because I'm so humbled by what's happened. And people will say, why do you share things on Facebook? Why do you share? Because we know what the Bible says. Don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing, or vice versa. And that's true. But we're also living in a world where so much bad is shared, JW. We hear all that. The devil is working overtime to try to steal our children and destroy families. And if we don't stand up as Christians and be bold in our witness, then what are we going to say one day when we stand before our Father? I want him to say, well done. Mm-hmm. But we're not doing things well if we are not sharing our testimony. And I believe that's what it's all about, to be bold and to be powerful in our witness. And children are an important part of it. Just like this is our little kindness jar that we made, the children made. And when they do acts of kindness, we have that. And then we have clinging crosses. And this is one thing we give people when they come, because a lot of people that come to Tim's Gift for help, we're not able to give them everything they need. Mm-hmm. But we give them a cross and show them how they can hold it in their hand and cling to it. And that's something we can give one another, is hope. We can share that with one another. At Thanksgiving, if families talk about, there'll be a lot of talk about our government, our president, all the issues. Why aren't we talking about the needs? Why don't we sit down and talk with our children? What's going on in school? What are things you're concerned about? If we change up the way we are living, the pace we live, and what we're doing, we'll see a difference. I truly believe that. And no, my plans didn't turn out the way we thought, but even with God's plans, He sent a man to Tim's Gift 6 years after Tim passed away, James Vann.
There you go.
I would have never thought that was in my plans. Mm-mm. And even now, I don't know what God has planned for the rest of my life. I take it one day at a time.
Well, that resulted in tragedy too, Becky. So, I mean, it's almost like you've got a double hitter here, and both of it's tragic, but you took both of those and used them in such a powerful way. I mean, there's people listening to this show will probably be thinking as we're talking, how does this lady do this? How does she get out and push that forward?
I only do it through God's strength. If it was not for a close relationship, and there are so many, I know there are many people who know God and are Christians, but it's when we go through the valley and when we learn from that and realize that He takes us through it. And He honestly brings good from the bad, as He says in Romans 8:28. But we have to trust Him, and the closer we get to Him, the more He speaks and shows us, and that's what I've witnessed in my life. He's been so good. And I just want to I want to help other people so they don't get stuck and they can move forth, because life is good. Even when we don't have it the way we wanted it, no plans didn't turn out. And I've said my heart was broken twice, one with a long illness with cancer, one so fast James and I didn't get to say goodbye.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't even realize that until weeks later. You hadn't heard about it.
We didn't know what was coming. We thought he had a cold. It was misdiagnosed. But you know what? It was in God's plans, and his children have supported me. We're very close. In fact, tonight I go over to Tina's, his daughters, and we have Thanksgiving together. God brings blessings from the burdens and the heartaches we go through if we allow it. We can either be angry about the way America is right now and be upset the way maybe city government works or the way people do things, or we can have a strong voice in a positive, loving way and make changes. And Christians have a lot of power when we come together and stand together. This week, JW, I've actually moved into a home out on Faison Highway with my son and his family, and we're redoing the basement. Wow. And when I started to, two men came in to help put in insulation in the ceiling. They were Hispanic, and I was going to help them because I had the morning off. So we started to work, and they looked at me and they said, mission. And I did this, and I said, I don't understand. And they looked at me, the two of them, and said, no speak English. And I said, no speak Spanish. And I realized there's a language barrier, but in that split second, it's like God put something in my mind. When our boys were little, I learned a song called Love in Any Language. Straight from the heart, pulls us all together, never apart. And that song started going through my mind. And I looked at those guys and I said, what mission? And they started pointing up, and one man said, God. I said, God's mission. They said, yes. And then they pointed to me, and I said, ministry? Tim's gift? And they said, yes. They knew about it, but didn't know how to tell me.
That's your brand, in case you hadn't realized.
So as we stood there in that basement, and we were wearing white masks because the sheetrock, I realized we could not truly communicate. But we did communicate, because when they pointed and said God, and then we started to work, and one of them did this. And I said, do you want to pray? And we joined hands, the three of us, in that basement, JW. I was praying in English. They were praying in Spanish. But the language that was heard was the Holy Spirit. It was powerful. And when we finished, it was just a big hug. I may never see them again. I don't know their names. But they blessed me. And I think many times we look at other people and we think, well, sometimes we almost get on our little pedestal and we think we're better than other people. God's no respecter of persons. He used those two men to bless me. Yesterday, a man came in Tim's gift who's been coming for 7 years. He's brought a lady that lives a few miles outside Clinton. He grew up on the farm there, JW, a tenant farm with his mom and dad. His parents passed away. The lady's husband passed away. And this man, for the last 20-some years, has taken care of this lady. He brings her, for the last 6 years, he's come to Tim's gift every week to get her supplies. She sits in the car. She passed away 2 weeks ago. So he came to tell us. And as he sat there telling about it, I thought about our kindness campaign. And I had one of Tim's motorcycle. It was a leather vest. He'd never worn it. We bought it but when he got sick. I have had it for 12 years and wanted to give it to just the right person. It was in a drawer in Tim's gift, and I went in and pulled it out because this guy was a big guy too. And I said, "Sir, you have been so kind to this lady. You have done things even her family wouldn't do for her. I want to give you my husband's vest." He took that vest, JW, and held it to his chest with tears. He said, "Thank you." I said, "No, that's my act of kindness for today." I was so blessed, but it took 12 years to find the right person. And sometimes we're in such a hurry because we live in that kind of world. I believe if we slow down and let Him speak to our hearts, He will do amazing things in all of us.
Those are the kinds of stories when folks hear it, I'm sure they could probably express some things maybe they have done. But oftentimes folks maybe will look and say, "I wish I have done something, or I could have done this, or I could have done that." How do we get to that point of understanding that there's always going to be things that we would like do-overs, but sometimes we don't get the do-over, but we do get this point from here forward?
We get another opportunity, and that's where we can't live in the past. If you live in the past, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, neither would you.
That's true.
We've all had problems and heartaches. But we have to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and say, "God, I can't do this by myself, but with you." And there are nights I still cry. I miss Tim and I miss James, but I don't let it define what God's got planned. And there are a lot of people who are doing that. It's just that the attention is not focused, and we don't do it for attention, JW. But it's that kind of thing that will build and grow and mushroom, and that's why we want to challenge people to do kindness this Christmas so that we can see a difference in our community, and it will spread like wildfire, and people will say, "What's happening in Clinton? What is our, we should know that He can make a difference in everybody's life. It's not just JW or Becky."
Well, we're going to take another break,
Okay.
and I want to come back and I will talk about some of those commonality and Christianity thoughts, something that I think is important for a lot of folks to think about and talk about during this time of the year. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us, and also want to remind you to call a friend as we go through these breaks and series here. Becky's going to be with us a few more minutes, and we want to talk to you about some things that maybe will help you through this year. We'll be back in a moment.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on air every Tuesday at 2:30. We come to you with a show that we feel is educational or information. We bring the people that are doing it right to your face, right on the camera, to talk to you about what they're doing. A person that's been in the giving business for over a decade now, been helping people through heartache, pain, issues that is sometimes unimaginable. Becky Spell Vann. Becky, thank you for being with us. We've talked about a lot of things. We're on our last segment here. There's a couple of things I mentioned you off air I wanted to cover. And one of those is this sense of commonality for Christians. There's almost a purposefulness in what you have done and what you do. You are in and out of churches as much or more than anybody I know throughout the area, throughout the county. When you look at that, many of the small country churches are having, what should I say, membership issues. They got plenty of seats in the pews. It's another way to look at it. And talk to us about what folks need to do to help move this message forward. And some of it is beyond the walls of the church. But at the same time, we call this God's house. So the question in a more specific way would be, why is God's house half full?
Well, and that is the question of the decade right now. It truly is, because we've seen it happening, and now it's becoming more strategic as we look around in our churches. But I think we're entering an age when there's so many people that use an excuse for anything they really don't want to do. And then we've also lost our respect for the Sabbath. We truly have. Whatever we call the Sabbath, and I know many people have to work on Sunday and it's another day, but the Sabbath is very important, and our worship time and what we do. But a lot of people will say, well, I watch it at home, and I do. I enjoy a lot of the TV programs that we have now, but there's something to be said for the fellowship of believers, and the Bible stresses that importance. But what happens when we have ball games that are being played on Sunday, and we don't stand up as a unit and say, no, we can play 6 days a week. Many of us find that we plan things on Sunday. We're all guilty of it at one time or another. But what happens in our churches, I don't know. I think the love that we share and the greeting people, are we friendly? Are we reaching out? Are we going outside the walls of our church to actually show that? I think in our community, I believe we are addressing it in the small churches because I see it. I see it when I go visit these churches, and I believe we're going to see a time when God will use something that will bring us to a point. Like 9/11. Look what happened after 9/11. Churches were full. But then we become complacent. And there's a complacency right now that I think we've got time. We don't have to go to church. We can do it next Sunday, or we'll go here. I think we need a dedication. And from our leadership all the way down. Even like our children at our church just did a turkey trot. It was amazing, JW, the people who planned it. If anybody had walked in our church, all our children, they were running around, going around in the sanctuary pretending to be turkeys, and the adults were joining in with us, and it was a wonderful celebration. But we found that we have to reach them. We have to reach our young people. We have to maybe sing a praise song in a different way, and it might not be a traditional hymn. But also our young people have to respect that we can sing the Old Rugged Cross or Amazing Grace and respect that too. I think it's a respect factor, and it's coming back to truly giving God time and worshiping together and being and having a responsibility. When you and I grew up, did we have a choice to go to church? No. We went to church. It was expected. And that's where the activities happened. But what's happening in our world today, I believe the reason many of our churches have a lot of empty seats is because there's so many opportunities to do anything that anybody wants to do, even on Sunday. And a lot of us grew up in America in churches where that was the center of our activity.
Another part of that, as I look at the things that you have done and the experiences you've had, it occurred to me in an article that I read some years ago that talked about the challenges for, quote, a Christian. And one of the biggest challenges that seem to be put forth is the idea of being able to forgive and move forward. And oftentimes you see it, and certainly I do, and we've been challenged with it ourselves, I'm sure, but the idea that once you are not able to do that, you get stuck in a time and place, and after a while, it actually festers, and I think the soul starts rotting.
Really
I'm being very spiritual here now in my conversation, but I think that's something that I hear a lot of times, that Christians in the toolkit they got, that's one of the tools that sometimes they can't quite figure out how to work.
Right. And forgiveness is a very important thing. It's talked about in the Bible so in just about every chapter. And Jesus taught that, because who was treated any worse than Jesus was? And his own family. And things he went through in his own hometown. But he showed humility, yet he was also able to stand for what he believed. And he did it in a way that if we could learn to do that more and not lose our cool and lose our temper and then take the phone and text 25 people and tell them what happened and then it mushrooms, I think we're living in a society when we want to go to other people when we should go to him. But when we talk to God about these things and we ask his help, he will send it. In fact, one of the things that, this is what Riley Pope used this summer, her lesson plan, and she had 10 things, and the very first one says, our words and actions have an imprint on others, and they really do, and we've all been hurt. One of the main things, one day I pray that God will give me an opportunity to share about is in-laws. You know, if we're married, we have in-laws. And when Tim and I dated in high school, fortunate enough to have the support of our family, because our families didn't really agree with our love affair, love relationship.
You're probably not the only one listening to this show. Yeah.
And I can tell you that for many years, my mother-in-law and I did not share we were kind to one another, but we were not close. And I think that's one of our problems in our churches. People are kind to one another, but when you're not close to God, then it's hard to be close to His children. And for many, many years, my mother-in-law and I, we wasted a lot of time when we could have been close. When Tim passed away, I saw that begin to change. But when James came into my life, JW, I drove out to my mother-in-law. She lives out near Clement. I sat down at the kitchen table with her and I said, Mom, I will always love your son, but I've met someone and I would like to go out with him. But since my parents are not here, I've come to ask your blessing and for your forgiveness for the time that we have lost in a close relationship. And JW, she was so overcome with emotion, and she said, you have my blessing. And since that day, that was 7.5 years ago, God has worked a miracle in our lives. I call her, she is more than mom now. She's a mother to me, and we are so very close. And I would say to anybody, with Thanksgiving coming up, if there's a family member that you have aught against or you're holding a grudge, let it go. We don't need that in our lives. And when James passed away, we had a situation where there was someone that I felt could have helped more when he got sick so quickly. And I knew in my heart I had hard feelings. And I prayed about it for a week, and a week after he was buried, I went to that person and I said, I have to come to you because I don't want to carry this load on me, and it will affect me. I have to come and ask you to forgive me for feeling bad at you. And JW, what happened, it led to an hour of talking about forgiveness. And I was warned that this person may not be understanding. It was anything but that. It was a beautiful time together. And I think we shy away from going to people. And the Bible says if you've got out against somebody, go to them. It also says don't let the sun set on your anger. So that is part of what we have to do to release that. Then we don't have these lingering sagas that we hear where people are, the Hatfields and the McCoys, where they're angry at one another. We can all love one another and live together even though we're different.
It occurred to me as I've listened to you during this program today, and one of the things that seems to be clearly coming through is you're clearly saying, I can't tell you what gift to buy, but I can tell you what you need to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that message is coming through very clearly. The other thing that seems to strike me is that you're also bringing a message that the family is bigger than what we think it is, that our family is much bigger, because you've kind of opened the door in a wide way and said, look, all of these folks is your family. Is that
it's family?
Yeah, is that what I'm hearing?
And how do we deal with that? How many people will go for Thanksgiving meal tomorrow and they dread going? Or they think, oh, well, we'll endure it and
or it's
we'll
a routine.
Leave. A routine. But why not go tomorrow, and if there's something that bothers you about someone, very lovingly say, look, I don't really know what to say, but I'm sorry. And take it baby steps. We don't have to go in with a bang and make a big deal out of it. We do it in a loving way. And when we show love, God will work miracles. He's still doing that. I've seen them. And that is what keeps me fueled up, JW. That's actually our Rise Up conference this year. Rise Up and Refuel. And it is time we refuel our tanks with kindness, love. We're doing the fruit of the Spirit right now, and those are the things that we need to share this Christmas. That's what I would encourage everyone to do. It's wonderful to buy a gift, but how do you give it? Do you give it out of, well, I need to buy JW something because he's going to buy me something? Yeah. We need to do it out of a spirit of love and give it in love and expect something good to happen.
Well, I want to thank you for being with us. We're coming up on the close of the show, and as you know, we could probably talk for 2 or 3 hours and keep this message going. But your message, I think, is right on point. Your work, I give you accolades and empowerment, and if those listeners and viewers will join us, we can maybe make a difference. And sometimes that difference might be small, but it could be tremendous. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, JW.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday. Each and every Tuesday, we'll be bringing you someone different, message a little bit different, content. And again, as we close, we always look at the camera and say to you, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.